Good morning, everyone. My name is Benjamin, and today we're going to be looking at some dark horse states for 2020. And I'm just using the 2016 map with the dark horse states labeled as toss-ups. And these are states that are not particularly competitive, but could become so with the proper investment from either party. These are states that, under the right environment, could become very competitive or even flip. And as such, I've chosen three for each party. Let's start with the states Democrats can make a play for and why I think they could become competitive under the right circumstances. We're going to start with Alaska. This non-contiguous state, the land of the midnight sun, is a traditionally Republican state and is extremely rural. It's about the size of half of the contiguous U.S., but has only a slightly higher population than Wyoming. It would seem it fits the mold of one of those wide open western states in being very conservative. However, Alaska has a very large native population and which could eventually potentially flip the state, especially if more and more swing voters pop up. And they would be positively predisposed to at least one proposal from a few Democrats. Andrew Yang being a good example of a Democrat proposing this, and that would be the universal basic income. This is because Alaska uses corporate taxes from oil revenue in order to fund a sort of UBI for its citizens. It's not quite a universal basic income, but the oil money that does come out of Alaska does help subsidize tax credits to their citizens. However, this is the least likely state to flip of the three that I'm going to talk about, as it is arguably the most Republican of the three I've selected. Montana is another very Republican state. This Mountain West state, big sky country, has been a bit swingy in the past, but they love populists, they love their guns, but they also have some moderate leans. They have a Democratic governor and senator. They voted for Clinton once. Montana can be a competitive state. However, it does hold a massive Republican lean and has a conservative lean even within the Democratic Party. The only Democrat who could really win Montana would be a moderate from Montana. Texas. Well, we have to talk about the Lone Star State. Democrats say it's purple, and they can do so until the cows come home, but it has a similar partisan lean to New Mexico, and we'll talk about that one in a bit, but in the Republican direction. And if New Mexico is considered a safe Dem state, why is Texas considered purple? Well, yes, Texas is not as Republican as it was in the Bush years, and it is definitely changing demographically. However, Texas is still not quite a swing state. It's close to becoming one. O'Rourke vastly outperformed expectations. However, this was also against a weak Ted Cruz, and within 5% of winning the seat, but a 3% loss is still a 3% loss. Considering this was also a Democratic environment nationally, that should have been able to push him over the top. He could have easily won Texas if it was a swing state. In reality, Texas is still very much a state Republicans don't have to worry about too much. However, Republicans need to begin investing seriously in holding this growing state, or else it may slip and their road to victory presidentially will become much narrower. Now let's flip and talk about the states where Republicans can try and flip the environment. Start with New Mexico. Rumor has it that Donald Trump will want to compete here heavily. I'm skeptical about this strategy, however. New Mexico is about as blue as Texas is red, though it is moving away from the GOP. It is still a western state that isn't a progressive stronghold, so a reasonably moderate Republican could potentially win the land of enchantment. It's an uphill battle for sure, but with the right messaging and the right positions, it's not impossible. but it's a very difficult lift, becoming even more so every day that passes. Let's go to Delaware. I'm going to get called out on this one a lot. And the reason is simple. It's a safe Democratic state. My question is it? No, seriously, how safe is it? When we look at Morning Consult's national approval rating numbers and their state-by-state approval rating numbers for President Trump, Delaware's almost match exactly with the national environment. And you may say, well, it's not whatever. If this race is already being competitive, despite Donald Trump's approval rating figures, we should be considering Delaware competitive because its approval rating figures are exactly the same. And this means we can assume that Donald Trump is not doing as poorly in Delaware as in other blue states. In fact, it has similar approval figures currently to what Donald Trump's figures are in states that he won in 2016. Delaware has similar approval rating figures to, say, Wisconsin and Iowa. So it's not exactly the worst environment for him there. In addition, it hasn't been as blue as surrounding states like New Jersey or New York or Maryland, certainly not DC. And the Republican has hovered around 40 to 42% for a while in the modern era. And that is at least when adjusting for all factors seems to be becoming more like the nation as a whole. This means it could become a swing state in the coming years, and if it becomes even moderately competitive in 2020, it should be a warning bell to Democrats because Delaware is similar to Pennsylvania in that its Democrats are old school Democrats who aren't super progressive. They're more the union working class type. They're not really big into the whole culture wars, and they just want to take care of their wallet. And at least if my experience in Delaware over the winter is any indication, that is still true. It's also similar to the next state in that it has a lot of swing voters rather than a lot of voters of either party. So it could flip if they are targeted properly by campaign ads with the proper messaging. And the next state is Rhode Island, the ocean state. People forget this, but there were reputable polls in 2016 that had Rhode Island within 10%. And truthfully, not just within 10, but one had the state within 5. Now, obviously, we know the results. That wasn't exactly representative. They were outliers for the most part. But it indicated that it could be evolving into a swing state. And maybe it is. It's a very elastic state, the most elastic in the nation, in fact. It has high Democratic partisanship, though. Not quite 50%, and it's enough so that if the Republican does very well nationally, it could flip. But we will need to see the results in 2020 to see if it has moved. But it seems the state's partisanship is becoming less Democratic. I think it might if my calculations are anything to go off of. And again, Rhode Island is very similar to Delaware in that vein, that it could be moving, but it's kind of a slow move, and it more has to do with the type of voters who are there. Rhode Island is a progressive state, or at least a lot of its politicians seem to be progressive, and they seem to not be 100% disproving of that. But it is a swingy state, even if its results don't show that it is, because of its high elasticity. It just has a high Democratic benchmark to go off of. Anyway, all of these states may or may not become competitive. However, I think they all deserve some look is they have interesting dynamics, and it is important to look at the local dynamics of safe states to see where opportunities lie for pickups by one of the parties. Otherwise, we're only going to focus on a small number of well-known swing states, and we get no real variety in campaigning, and we get no real shift in our national conversation because the issues stagnate. Anyway, I want to thank everyone for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy. Have a nice day.